As you can see, I am starting things off a little differently, just to give you guys a little view of the progress that we have made so far in Old Town. Now, I know that I have been doing some builds, some speed builds really, using the same building a couple of times there. I have to do it one more time, but trust me on this, the vision as how it develops to be actually turns out really great. So I'm very happy with it. But today we're doing something very different here. We are going to work on a historical landmark in SimCity, and that is going to be the Old Town Station. Now, for those of you just discovering this series, discovering my channel, and just kind of getting to know who I am, my name is Michael, and I want to welcome you to Sovereign Gaming in Life Sims, the YouTube channel where I build lots worlds and also share my thoughts on video games that I enjoy in the life simulation gaming space. And yes, we are indeed back in my custom world, SimCity, where we are just going to continue doing what we've been doing this whole time, really, and that is building out Old Town. Now, in the last episode, we talked about an NPC that I really wanted to highlight, as I feel like she just hasn't had enough of a spotlight, and that was Miss Lucille. So if you haven't checked out that episode, then feel free to do so if you'd like. Now, today, we are doing things completely different. We are going to actually pay homage to something that a lot of old towns and original townships have, and that is a train station. And in this case, what I wanted to do is I really wanted to make this more of like a historical train station build that has been refurbished and repurposed as a restaurant. So that's why I decided to make it a community lot, and also to designate the community lot type as a hangout, as those hangout lot types for some reason seem to be one of the most compatible lot types when it comes to actual restaurant play. And yes, this idea alone pretty much had me purchase the Business in Bistro set from the Sims 3 store, which led to me blocking myself from using the editing game mode in my Create a World series. But that is a whole other thing as well. And now I'm finally here. So it's a full circle moment, to say the very least. For me, at least. I feel like in most cities and towns, there's like some sort of a local heritage group that seeks to protect certain buildings and to help restore them back to their former glory, if at all possible. And the story that I really wanted to tell with Old Town Station here is that it is in fact like the original train station that used to carry passengers, or the first passengers, to SimCity, as it was founded near that deep sea port. And so the idea here with the Old Town Station is that certain parts of it are protected, and that would include like the station structure itself, of course, but oddly enough, it would also include the rails. So somehow, some way, in the past, like when this heritage group was formed, they considered the rails of the Old Town Station to be part of the heritage structure. And so what that kind of develops into as a story for the SimCity lore, as we are watching it build before our very eyes, is that when a business owner goes to purchase such a structure and to repurpose it, and in this case, Old Town Station's being repurposed as a restaurant, you'll see me change it to a hangout earlier before. Yeah, basically that owner really has to adhere to those heritage rules. And because the rails were designated as part of the heritage structure, the owner would not have been able to, they wouldn't have been granted permission to actually rip out the rails. And so what I'm doing here, and what you're going to see me do on screen, is you're going to see me experiment a lot with the rails. I really wanted to close the station and really make it look like there were certain modern touches added to it to actually close the station to make it function like a proper restaurant. And in order for the owner to really respect the heritage and the historical significance of the building that they're building on, they really had to highlight certain features of the building. Of course, keeping it the same structure is definitely part of that respect, but also because the rails are protected themselves, what the what I'm saying that the owner would have likely had to do is find a way to allow people to appreciate the rails that they would be dining on top of, essentially, because what we're doing is we're really bridging that gap between two platforms of the original station. Or at least that's the kind of lore that I think would be very interesting to add in SimCity here. And so, yeah, you're going to see me experiment a lot with foundation heights because I didn't want the top part of the rail to poke through. And I also wanted to make sure that I could place in those into the future glass floor carpets or rugs, I guess. They're technically classified as a rug, interesting enough. And yeah, I wanted to make sure that you could still see through to the actual rails themselves. As for the exterior of the station, like bridging the gap where the train would pull in, I don't know what the actual name of that is really called, so I do apologize if there's somebody that is very familiar with trains there. But at that station level, at the platform level, there is that gap where the train pulls in, but the platforms are covered by short roof structures. And so what I wanted to do is I also wanted to carry that glass floor effect up into the ceiling as some sort of like a modern day, you know, glass box addition to an old structure. I've complained about it in one of my past videos, in one of my past Old Town lot builds. I forget whether it was the French Heritage Restoration penthouse or if it was Miss Lucille's bakery. But one thing that like really bothers me in a way, and this is just a personal thing, is just like when architects and designers just throw some sort of a glass box on top of a beautiful heritage building. Like, it just does not do the heritage building justice. And if you're going to refurbish something and to restore it to something greater than what it once was, you need to actually do something more creative than that, or at least blend it in properly. Anyways, I'm done with the rant there, but I actually wanted to show a little bit about what I don't like about those modern day restorations of old heritage buildings. And so I just kind of wanted to more so show my issue with it rather than tell. So instead of, and to be fair, like, this isn't something I would actually consider ugly. I think that you can add in glass to a historical building. It just has to be done tastefully. And then this is sort of the case where it really borders the line, whether it's tasteful or or actually not doing the structure at all justice. So that's why I added in the glass where I did. Now, I wanted to mention that because I really wanted to open up the restaurant on the inside, and opening it up with the glass and with the natural lights was really the way that I really wanted to do it. Now, inside, I decided to go with a rustic Italian themed restaurant. I felt that it would fit the space, and it would also lend itself to some more of the industrial themes present throughout. Like, this was an old train station. It's going to be a little more industrial than some sort of an upscale fancy restaurant. And rustic Italian restaurants that I've been to have all been phenomenal in the food department, and they have like a really nice ambiance to them. So I really wanted to include that here. So yeah, that's why I chose the rustic Italian restaurant that I did. And before I move on, I just want to say that this station, actually, the structure itself draws upon inspiration from the old train station in Hammond, Louisiana, which is a real city in Louisiana. So I really like the way that the station looked. I love that it had this like coned roof, and it just helped to make it feel more different, because I was really looking for inspiration on these different kinds of train stations, like older small town train stations, and the one in Hammond, Louisiana, where a lot of the old town architecture and themes draw inspiration from, which is, you know, New Orleans specifically, but I guess Louisiana as well in some retrospects. And I felt that this was a really good a good reference to use when designing this train station slash restaurant. So that's really where the inspiration comes from in this. And luckily enough, like the lot really lends itself well to that kind of a shape. So I kind of lucked out there in terms of the reference actually matching the lot that I had to work with. So I was very happy with using Hammond, Louisiana as my reference point and their train station there. Now, don't get me wrong, the Hammond, Louisiana train station doesn't have like a lattice overhanging its platform levels and whatnot. So, so yeah, that's definitely a creative liberty that I decided to take. And I figured that it would be fair enough to take, because if somebody has the money, the time, the energy, and I guess the idea to buy a historical landmark like this and then to repurpose it as an Italian restaurant, I would imagine that they would also likely have the money to eventually spend on installing a really beautiful lattice that overhangs the platform level from the outside there. So that was kind of my idea when working with this as well, is just to add in some of those updates and to really make it look like it's a restored project, a repurposed historical landmark that's actually turning into something new, and it's staying alive really because of it. And yeah, I really enjoyed the fact that the lattice was placed in there. Now, granted, I decided not to do any kind of outdoor seating. I just wanted to do all of the seating on the inside of the train station here. And I'll talk a little more about the inside in just a moment. But when I started putting in the glass roof and all of the windows and such, and you'll see me like redo the roof a couple of times just because I decided to add another level into the hexagon part of the building. So just to give it a little more interest and intrigue, there is no real upstairs. I just end up putting a chandelier in there. Anyways, when I actually get the glass roof into the actual station building, that's really where the vision comes alive, and it's like, okay, now I can start to see how this old train station is repurposed into a closed building that has 4 sides to it and all of that. I can see how this train station has become a box, not an open air place to wait for a train. So I was very happy with the way that the Into the Future glass floor rugs, I don't know what to call them, but they're glass floor rugs. You find them in the rug section, and they're brilliant for doing this kind of thing. They actually bring glass floors into your builds and all that in a way that doesn't feel glitchy to me. Like, you no longer have to download glass floors, and they come in multiple sizes. I was very happy with the way that they all fit in, and even though the big ones didn't fit in perfectly, I like the way that the other ones managed to get situated in the spots that they did. So yeah, I was very happy with the way that it started to look in terms of the exterior. And when it comes to the interior, I really didn't want to what's a way to say this without making myself sound lazy? I really didn't want to overdo the interior in a lot of ways, and I'll explain in just a moment. So when it came to the interior design and my very brief and basic research into what rustic Italian restaurants really look like, I kind of noticed that they resemble, to me, in a way, industrial styles. So what I decided to embrace with that idea is to incorporate like a lot of the outdoor exterior style choices into the interiors. So you'll see a lot of that brick come back inside as well. And I decided to pair it with like a very blank wall that could be interpreted as like some sort of a cement wall. And the reason why I just decided to choose that is because it felt a little more industrial and it felt like it encompassed the rustic part of the Italian rustic style that I was really trying to emulate. But I'll kind of cover more of that in details in just a minute here, because what I One of the things that I really wanted to touch upon is the brick. And if the brick looks familiar, it absolutely is. And it absolutely is intentional that I am using it here in the Old Town Station. You see, the brick was something that I touched on in the port build that I did a couple of months back. And it's essentially like a certain material that has been prevalent throughout the entire SimCity world. Like, it's one of those old materials that was originally used because it was cheap and durable, and it just got the job done in terms of creating your structures and building. And so that brick is intentionally used here. I've used it in some of the previous builds. I believe I used it quite extensively in the artist studio build that I did a few episodes back. So this brick, this particular color is kind of like that original brick. You know how in New York City you have people that are huge fans of whenever they have that original New York brick? Well, that's kind of the idea here. It's just like that brickwork is prevalent in the Old Town Station. It's especially prevalent in Old Town in general. And yeah, that was one style choice that I really wanted to make clear, was that all of that original SimCity brick is very prevalent in Old Town, to really mark that it is the original settlement of the metro region. Another thing that I also wanted to explain with this, I guess this overhanging lattice, and I'm very unsure on the plant choice that I made with that as well. So yeah, I'm not too sure on it. I think that the plants work, but I just might be wrong in that case. But what I did like is the vines just kind of creeping up and crawling up in it. And it feels like something that the owner of a restaurant would intentionally plant to give it that more welcoming feel. It doesn't feel like it's just straight up industrial brick, which is fine. It's a choice in of itself, to have an industrial building look and feel like an industrial building, then be something completely different on the inside. But in this case, I felt that the vines kind of crawling up each of those pillars was something that I really wanted to bring back here. And same with the iron wrought gates. I felt that those were yet another style choice that's very unique to the Old Town neighborhood. I don't imagine that I would use that iron wrought tall fence. You guys know the one that I'm talking about, because it's very prevalent in this build and all of the previous Old Town builds that I've done. And yeah, I really wanted to have that. I really wanted to have that in here as well, just to kind of show that this lattice is supported by something more than just pillars. And yeah, it also kind of helps to really make it come alive, give the train station a lot more intrigue and interest into it than just this concrete basic station that has been sitting around for centuries. It's actually been redecorated and restored and completely repurposed into something that the community, I imagine, would love and adore. Actually, the whole city would really love a restaurant like this. Speaking of restaurants, I mentioned it before, but it bears mentioning again because I made this into a community lot, and I actually classified the community lot as a hangout. That seems to be the community classification that works the best for restaurants. And this station alone was actually a big reason why I decided to go ahead and purchase the business as usual bistro from the Sims 3 store. When I was working on the port, I was thinking ahead, because I'm always thinking ahead when it comes to building lots and stuff. And yeah, I really wanted to have a restaurant interpretation of what an old train station would look like. So this design has been kicking around in my head for quite a long time here. And yeah, it led to the business as usual purchase, which other players have struggled with. I personally have not struggled with using the actual premium content in of itself. It only blocked me from using the edit in game mode and create a world. So, players aren't typically using create a world these days when they're playing The Sims 3. But yeah, this lot was designed basically for that premium content that I described earlier, the business as usual bistro. When it came to designing the interior of the restaurant, I actually really struggled with this one. And a big reason why is really staring at us in the face. I wanted the focal point of this restaurant to really be the train tracks. Like I guess the Heritage Committee was really adamant that the rail be preserved and featured in whatever kind of a future owner did with the building. And so to make that happen, I placed again those into the future see-through glass floors and it didn't feel right to put like tables and chairs on top of them, or to even like design a bar on top of it. It didn't feel right to block it at all. I just felt like the train tracks were such a huge consideration, and like just with the lore of the city and everything, that it would be the feature architectural piece. Now, what this really posed as a challenge is just kind of the general layout. Now, granted, I could have, just covered it with floor and just covered less of it with those glass floors. And actually, now that I'm saying it out loud, maybe it would look better if it was just like peekaboo style glass floors, where only certain sections were glass floors as opposed to the entire thing. But then again, then it takes away from the two sides being the original platforms. Maybe I'll edit that. I might experiment with that if I ever do like some sort of an edit episode where I edit my previous slots. But yeah, I just kind of wanted to mention here that it just didn't feel right for me personally, and also like for the lore of it, to cover those glass floors with anything other than just like a look into the train tracks that once were. I really wanted people that were eating at the restaurant to feel like they were actually eating on the station platforms in this cool repurposed old station house. so yeah, that was really a big reason why I faced a lot of the architectural challenges that I did, and that includes and carries over to like the bathrooms and the kitchens. Like you'll see me switch through where I wanted to put the bathrooms originally, but then I ended up placing them beside the kitchen, and the kitchen is really small because I wanted the entrance, the lobby, to really feel a lot more welcoming. And and I was okay with the kitchen. Like the kitchen, again, very bare bones. I barely touched it. I barely did anything with it. I just wanted to drop in the business as usual bistro stuff, put in a couple of counters, put in the sink that came with the business as usual bistro set, which is an amazing sink. I love that sink so much, and I don't know what I've been doing without it, if I'm gonna be honest. And yeah, I kept the kitchen very bare bones. I just wanted to function like a kitchen. And yeah, so like when you download the business as usual bistro, it's your chefs that actually serve the food. So they cook the food and then they serve it to your sim, who's sitting in their seat. So that's why I put down several of those ovens / fridges in there. Oh, wait a minute. I didn't even... Okay, never mind. I thought I didn't put in a fridge for a minute there, but I think I just didn't get a good shot of it. Yeah, so the kitchen was certainly something that, like, with the lot that I had built over this rail, because I didn't want it building over the other rails. I wanted the other rails that lead into the tunnels there to be quote unquote functional. But yeah, I wanted this lot size to be the size that it is, but I almost should have made it like a little bit longer in terms of what I could do with the space, only because like when it comes to the kitchen, like it just feels a little too small. And I guess I must have just been lazy with the kitchen, because it's just there to function like a kitchen and to not give the player any kind of problems when they end up downloading the slot. And yeah, and I've been to restaurants before, like just little holes in the wall where you'll go in and you'll eat someplace nice, and maybe it doesn't have like the best kind of seating available, or it's got a really cool historical background such as this. Like that's kind of the look and feel I was going for, but like you get the most amazing food delivered from the tiniest kitchens. And so this kind of I guess this kind of pays tribute to those experiences that I've had as well. It's just kind of like you question, how did something so great come from such a, such a small cramped kitchen? so yeah, that, I mean, maybe I'm just trying to defend myself here and my bad choices, but that's kind of what I went with. As for the decor inside the actual dining room, I went very minimal with this, and this one I am confidently defending only because I feel like the architectural feature, the splendor of this restaurant is the fact that you're eating in an old station house. You're eating in an old train station that was completely repurposed and redone as a restaurant, an indoor restaurant. So you're not just having to look at paintings on the wall or getting marveled by their plant arrangements. It's a rustic place, and it's meant to have that kind of truth to it. And it's not hiding the fact that you're in an old train station and that you're not just eating on, like, you're just not eating in any kind of a restaurant. You're actually eating on train station platforms that were used for centuries back. And yeah, the rustic decor that I ended up using was very minimal. I didn't want that to be the feature of this lot. I really wanted the feature of this lot to be the see-through floors, the see-through ceiling, and the train tracks itself, and just to really give it that true sense of place. I don't need anything else to really distract Sims or players from, taking in consideration that it's anything else. Like, it's a building that used to be a train station that was never meant to be a restaurant to host like a huge kitchen, but it still provides awesome food and a unique experience. So again, that was the vision that I had for Old Town Station. At the end of the build, I'm actually very happy with it. I know that this restaurant, the Old Town Station, it's not going to be like any other building in SimCity, and that's something that I really like and something that I really enjoy. I enjoy its historical significance. I enjoy the fact that it is a restaurant that can function like a restaurant, and I also just, I enjoyed the project. I enjoyed the creative thinking that just kind of went into it with the glass floor and the glass ceiling you see through to the old train tracks. Like, that's pretty cool if you ask me. And I think that, if this was ever to exist in real life, that it would be a place that I would actually enjoy eating at. So, I'm actually quite happy with the way that this turned out. Even though it's not the most conventional restaurant space, I do know for a fact that with the business as usual bistro set that I have access to, that there are going to be more restaurants that you can put in throughout the world. Like, I've done some experimenting off camera and stuff, and you can put a restaurant in bars. Yeah, you can put a restaurant in bars, and it just adopts like the bar's hours if you have the lot set to a certain bar. So, you can now, using that business as usual bistro from the Sims 3 store, I can now actually offer like decent restaurants, and I can make real kitchens there. This is not a real kitchen. This is not a standard kitchen at all. This is a makeshift kitchen that had to adapt to the space that was given, because this building was not originally a restaurant, nor was it designed as such. And so a cramped kitchen was something that we'll have to make do with. But yeah, that'll about do it for this episode of Old Town and Old Town Station, really, in Sin City. If the tour isn't playing yet, please stick around for the tour. I give off the floor plans, I give you some neat shots here and there, and yeah, feel free to stick around for that. Coming up next, actually, we are going to go back to old patterns. So I've got one more building to build that looks exactly the same exteriorly. I'm not too sure if exteriorly is a word, but it looks same on the exterior as the past 3 builds that I have done, but it is going to be the final one, and it is very important to the Old Town charm, and you guys will see why in that next speed build episode that'll be coming out to you next week, most likely. So I'm very excited to share that with you, and we are going to be highlighting yet another NPC that doesn't really get enough of a shout out in that build. So I'm very excited to bring that to you, and I'm I'm just really enjoying building this out and actually finally being able to execute on my vision here for SimCity. So, yeah, I'm very happy with this all. Anyways, I just wanted to thank you guys for watching. If you've enjoyed this video, if you've enjoyed this series, then feel free to give me a like on this video. That certainly helps me a lot. And also it shows me that you guys actually like it. And if you don't, feel free to leave a comment and share with me like what you would edit in this case. I might have to do an edit episode before I move on from Old Town. But anyways, yeah, feel free to like if you enjoyed this episode. If you've enjoyed this series, and if you haven't already done so, then feel free to consider subscribing as well. Anyways, thank you again for watching, and I hope you have yourself a wonderful day.